So With Love, Meghan season 2 just debuted on Netflix, and I genuinely think no one even noticed. This didn't come up in my Netflix what to watch. I actually had to search for it, and it certainly didn't pop up on my Instagram, YouTube, or TikTok. And I want to say it's because of the massive Taylor Swift engagement announcement overshadowing Meghan once again, but that was way later in the afternoon. This just seems like nobody even cares. So after binging it to the best of my ability for the sole reason of reviewing and recapping for you, I've got a lot of thoughts.
Show me life, show me love, make a change, time is up.
Hey everyone, welcome back to AshleyB TV. I'm a journalist who's worked in Hollywood for over a decade, and on this channel, I take you behind the headlines. If you like diving deeper into the stories you see all over the internet, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. We are so close to 10K subscribers, and I want to get there this weekend. It is my birthday, so just a little birthday treat for me. Now, quick reminder before we get started, I got to set the ground rules. This is not a place for hateful, nasty comments. We're critiquing a show put out by the biggest streaming platform in the world, and it is fair game to analyze and to share thoughtful commentary. And on this channel, we welcome varied opinions, but keep the nasty in the bedroom, okay? That's from both sides. With all that said, critics are having a field day with the release of season 2 of With Love, Meghan. We've got Forbes saying With Love, Meghan drops second season and gets torched by critics again. The Guardian says, so painfully contrived that it's genuinely fascinating. And the Telegraph says, more tone deafness from the Montecito Marie Antoinette. The Independent says, watching this is like being gaslit by a multimillionaire. And the Times says, With Love, Meghan review, season 2 is here. Start therapy now. And in my personal opinion, I'm just gonna tell you what my body was physically doing while trying to get through this show, and that was that is how I sleep next to Alan. I'm sorry. No, I probably don't. I'm probably the cutest sleeper ever. However, this was a total snooze fest, but there was something quite shocking to me that surprised me and actually kept me entertained for little moments and little bits. So I'm gonna share that throughout the video too. My biggest question I have for you guys, and this is a serious question, please answer this in the comments. Was I on drugs when I watched season 1? Because I came out of season 1 like floating on air, ready to make one pot pasta, sprinkling flour sprinkles on anything my little Disney princess heart desired. But season 2, I was like, what the hell is this? I truly couldn't watch more than 2 episodes. I was like, how am I going to give a review if I can't even get through this show? And then later in the day, I discovered on my phone that you could put it on 1.5 speed. So I put it on 1.5 speed. I'm not even hating. I'm just saying in order to muster through it for this review, I did that. But it still felt like I was being flour sprinkle held hostage. So according to the show's IMDb page, Meghan shares personal tips and tricks, embracing playfulness over perfection, highlighting how to create beauty in unexpected ways. However, there was nothing unexpected about the season. In fact, this was a copy and paste of season 1, except way worse. Season 1, there was at least that curiosity factor of the first time seeing Meghan in a long form way and receiving glimpses of her world post-royal exit, because let's be honest, that's the only reason we care, is when she dishes on her experience in the royal family, which, let us remind you, that was only 17 years ago. Season 2, if you weren't already over the bit, you will be. Just as a show in general, this was incredibly boring. So let's dive into the specifics of each episode. And I'm also going to share with you those surprising moments with the guests that had me like, what just happened? Spoiler alert, nothing to do with Meghan, but the set is overly polished and curated like we saw in season 1, with almost everything repeated in season 1. From teaching you how to make a charcuterie board, I'm literally fast forwarding through these scenes. I'm like, you know, you taught us this in 1A, right? And in this season, she doubles down on the fact that she genuinely hates baking. I'm like, why are you teaching us how to bake if you hate baking? She says it's too measured. And I think Meghan just doesn't like rules placed on her. Even though it's not placed on her, it's just like following a recipe. You could just tell it boils her blood to follow recipes. We also see these awkward like wrap-ups where they're like, what a joyful day. Wasn't this the loveliest day to connect with community? Lots of forced conversations and contrived like Oprah-like statements and announcements like, we're doing this in the spirit of sharing and community. Now, there were some moments of genuine interesting points, mostly by some of her guests who truly stole the show. So I'm going to be sharing those moments as well as some good, maybe some takeaways, maybe the bits of recipes that I think you can actually take out of the show. Maybe not. Who cares? Kicking off the episodes, the best were truly, this was weird, kept until the end, which, was typically a good strategy. You're like, oh, I gotta have that season finale just really pop off the charts. But this was not the show to keep your best to the last. This show was so incredibly dull and forced that by the time we're finally seeing Meghan kick off her heels and potentially get a little tipsy and bring in actual experts, I had already turned it off. I didn't even discover those episodes until I forced myself to watch it double speed coming back. So let's get to episode 1. Wow, this probably had to be the worst episode of them all. I have no idea why you started with this episode. We're making flower arrangements with this flower arrangement competition, except this time she brings in expert chefs and bakers to arrange flowers. Make it make sense, people. So your guests here are David Chang. He's a renowned chef and owns restaurants. You have Christina Tosi. She's the pastry chef and founder of Milk Bar. Those are the cakes and cookies and things that have the leftover cereal milk. Actually very delicious in New York City and Los Angeles. So you got these people who are used to being in the kitchen and you're like, let's have them make flowers, which making flowers is not interesting. I've been to flower bars before. I've done it. There's nothing interesting about that. But then she also has them make things that no one would ever make in their home, and also is not what anyone is known for. She has them make homemade graham crackers and homemade marshmallows. Please tell me in the comments, when is the last time you have wanted to make a homemade marshmallow and a homemade graham cracker? She also includes her best friend, makeup artist Daniel, who she didn't even invite to her wedding, as a part of this episode, as if he was the highlight of season 1. And I kid you not, Daniel almost loses his marbles, practically fainting over the idea of putting peanut butter on a s'more. I almost spit out my coffee at this. I'm like, this is not how you start this season. Now, to say this was the worst episode to start with is barely scratching the surface. So episode 2, this is when things get a little interesting with the internet's bully of the decade, and that's Chrissy Teigen. Now, this was fascinating because I'm thinking Chrissy is a bully. We are not supporting her. And boy, was I surprised at how amusing Chrissy Teigen was. What's interesting is the guests coming in, they're supposed to be Meghan's side character. She's supposed to be the lead. She's not in Suits anymore. She is the star. But the side characters actually became the main characters. And say what you want about Chrissy Teigen, but she felt pretty relaxed and kind of hilarious. I'm not going to lie. She forgets her kids' birthdays. Now, mind you, she said she had 4 kids and 4 dogs. She had them tattooed right here. She literally had to say, John Legend, her husband. John Legend just pops up from behind the set. And we see that John is staying behind the set the entire time. He's there all day, all night. That was so wild. And then when Meghan's like, let's go pick flowers and make little dead flower things, she's like, oh, I just get my flowers on Amazon. I'm like, Chrissy Teigen, I'm loving that. I am loving that bada. She also shares that she has a lot of anxiety struggles, and Meghan's like, really? And this was a moment, by the way, for Meghan to maybe lean into her anxiety that she says she has faced throughout the years, and she doesn't. So, tomato. But I love that she shares this moment of anxiety because, as you guys know, I've also, struggled with anxiety. I've also struggled with trauma. And I think this really grounds people, makes them very relatable. Who would have thought that it would have been Chrissy Teigen that would be getting the redemption arc of this episode? So she comes in, she's drinking her Thai tea that Meghan makes, and she's like, I need some milk. I need some condensed milk. And she seems really relaxed on camera. It's really interesting. She shares that her and Meghan were on Deal or No Deal, and you could kind of see that she was the one that started becoming famous, and Meghan was like, here I am, and you were the alternate, and then you got the magazine cover. And Chrissy's like, yeah, there's no competition on my end. And then the ladies proceed to make what we're all supposed to be making in the kitchen. And what is that, folks? That is homemade Cheez-Its. Because as John Legend said, step aside, Cheez-Its. Who wants this when you could make them homemade and it takes forever, and then you get just a little tiny cup of Cheez-Its. This was so unnecessary, so not practical. If the goal is to have practical recipes that people can make, so far, episode 2, they are failing. Meghan is not steering the conversation. Chrissy is stealing the spotlight. It feels like we're honestly in 2 different shows. I would have never thought by the end of this, I'd be like, I could see more of Chrissy Teigen. Honestly, you got to be real. You got to be grounded. You can't be too polished. That's what we want. And then Meghan has a setup where they're making crafts, and the crafts seem to be what Meghan really cares about and really likes versus the cooking and the baking, clearly. But she shows her how to dry flowers and then trying to make this jewelry for her children. And it seems like these crafts should be things you do with your children. But I came out of that episode wanting to see more of Chrissy Teigen and wanting to turn this show off. The next episode does the exact same thing, but even a step further. That's episode 3. It features Tan France from Queer Eye. Obviously, you want them to cross promote. Now, you hear that they've never met. And boy, you can tell in this episode that they have never met. The amount of awkward faces that Tan cannot, like, he's not an actor. He can't hide these faces that he makes, almost like eye rolls towards Meghan and what she's saying. He's like, oh, what are these sprinkle flowers? And you see this quirky moment that she teased on her Instagram. This was the best moment probably of the entire episode. But beyond this moment, I'm like, oh my God, he is trying to run for the hills. This is an episode I think should have been cut on the cutting room floor immediately. There's someone else she cut. We're going to get to that in a minute because that's wild too. So what's interesting is she shows us how to gift wrap. Like, once again, we've already learned how to gift wrap. They're also painting aprons for your kids, and you could tell Tan's like, what are we doing? There were forced producer-led conversations where he asks her, like, so I have to ask, like, when did you know you loved him? And Meghan shares this moment of saying, I wasn't the one who said it first. Harry was. Welcome to Hogwarts, Harry Potter. Also, we do learn here that Meghan says she wasn't doing well when she was apart for her kids. And, royal references say that this is when she was in England for the funeral of the Queen. But she doesn't kind of expand on this. She could have said, that was a hard time being away from my kids, but I'm so glad I was there for my family because my husband still is a prince. And we are still tied to the royal family. Like, she ignores the obvious of why if anyone still cares to watch her, she ignores that that's why they want to watch her. Like, she's acting like we just want to watch her because she worked on Suits. Episode 4, I'm not even going to get into this episode because it was boring as she makes, like, bookbinders with some random lady with big hair who says, oh my God, no, but seriously, come to San Francisco and I will take care of you. And Megan's like, yeah, sure, buddy. Okay, episode 5 was really interesting because if you blinked, you would have missed her. And that was Jamie Kern Lima. She's like looking at olive plants with her. And then all of a sudden she's gone. And you could tell Meghan was like, cut her out because everyone thought that interview with Jamie Kern Lima was out of control. So bye, Jamie. What's interesting about this episode is another unexpected guest stole the show. I didn't even know this guest existed, and that is Jay Shetty's wife. So Jay Shetty comes in, and you're like, oh God, he's gonna try to give some monk stuff, and Jay Shetty honestly kept it cool. I was kind of like, okay, he's being cool. He's just like, oh, how often do you make little crafts? Like, you could tell he's like, why are we doing this? Why am I making soap? A former monk for 3 months. But his wife, Roddy, she is so cool. So Roddy is a mission-driven entrepreneur, clinical dietitian, cookbook author, and wellness enthusiast. And she brings like holistic elements to cooking and eating and all those things. They're also vegan and they don't drink. So you can tell Meghan, because Meghan's like chugging alcohol this whole time. I don't know if it's to promote her rosé, but you could tell she's like, oh boy, you got to learn to make these non-alcoholic drinks for your guests because boy, sometimes they don't drink alcohol. As she's like drinking her 10th glass of the night. But Roddy was so cool because Roddy was like, yeah, we have game nights every week. We invite like 40 people. I personally cook for all of them. And that was really cool. And she's like, we don't serve alcohol at our house. So we learned to make it fun. We get to see Roddy actually obviously knows what she's talking about. She's making naan bread, which is like my favorite bread. They make like a spicy curry that looks delicious. Meghan does make some vegan coconut macaroons. This is the first thing, folks, I think you could make at home. The coconut macaroons seem doable, and also the soap making seems doable. Like the way they did it seems pretty cool. I left having more respect for Jay Shetty simply because of his wife. I was like, Roddy, where's your book? Where is your Netflix special? Sign me up. But then, boom, another surprise guest from the UK kind of like shows us how it's done. Michelin star chef Claire Smith from Core, who also was the one who did their wedding, cooked all their wedding food, and also their anniversary. I mean, think about how hard it is to earn one Michelin star. She earns 3 Michelin stars, and she was fabulous. But the thing Meghan wanted to focus on, she was like, and I really want to focus on plating because you're so good at plating. I'm like, no, she's so good at cooking. Like the thing that you don't really like to do. She's so good at cooking. Meghan said, I want her to feel loved and nurtured even when she is left. And it just made me think, I'm like, is that how you made your whole family feel, though? Love and nurtured even when they left? Because where's your family, bro? Okay, so I truly think she likes crafting more than baking and cooking. But it was nice to see someone from the UK. We also got to hear about like their late night snacks. And this is where we get to see photos of Prince Harry behind the scenes. I believe these are never before seen photos. And we get to hear that they served fried chicken at their after party. Now, what's interesting is Meghan talks about skillets and saying it's not about being fancy, like you don't need fancy cookware. But people have referenced that the cookware they're using is like one of the most expensive cookwares, and that's Creuset. You can tell I don't cook with that. So interesting. It's like, again, saying one thing but doing another. Meghan is shocked that Claire actually measures out the dough for each of her dinner rolls. She's like, oh my God, are you serious? You know what's really interesting too? You can tell Meghan prefers to be in the kitchen when she's just kind of like throwing stuff together. And there are a lot of people like that. My dad is actually one of those. But Claire is not like that. She wins Michelin stars. And Claire is someone who, when she speaks, you're like, this lady knows what she's talking about. Like, I'm going to respect her. And when she says things that out of Meghan's mouth could seem like, oh God, out of Claire's mouth, it's totally different because it's like grounded in reality and truth. Claire says that at her restaurant, it is quiet and calm and zen because in a fast-paced world, it's a shame we can't like concentrate more. And I don't know the exact quote, but she says something like that. Like, it's a shame that we can't focus on getting really good at things because it's such a fast-paced world. And then Meghan says, yes, you can learn how to beautify your plating. That was the end of that, folks. But that was one of the best episodes simply because of Claire. Claire, from over in the UK and your restaurant isn't $1 gazillion, I'll take a peep. When you think about it, if you rewind, like back when Meghan actually was in the royal family and people actually were rooting for her, she kind of has this like elegance in a way, like she's a classy lady, that she could have fit that. I told you guys I had interviewed Meghan Markle. She really was one of the nicest, most beautiful people I have ever met. And that is fact. That is just true. She was one of the nicest people on the red carpet. This was before she met Harry, I believe. This is before she was that mega famous. And it's such a shame because you're like, you would have really done great things if you would have just like played along, like been a team player. But instead, you're out making potato crisps and this like yummy garlic butter. Those were the 2 recipes out of episode 6. I think you might actually make. They look pretty easy. I don't think you're going to watch this show, but you can look up those recipes. Potato crisps, they're like little chips. All right, we're getting slightly better. And that is episode 7. And why it gets a little better, she brings in Heather Dorr. She's one of her good friends. And you can finally see Meghan start to let her guard down. I don't know why she waits for episode 7 to do this. They get away. They go to Malibu. They drink a little booze. And this is where Meghan feels at home. Meghan should really have the alcohol line. Like, that makes more sense than Blake having an alcohol line who doesn't drink alcohol. Make it make sense. What was really weird about this episode, though, guys, is that at the end of the episode, they give like a tribute to everyone affected by the wildfires, but nothing in the episode besides shooting in Malibu related back to the wildfires. And those wildfires, my friends were literally in them. A lot of them had to evacuate their homes. It was like the apocalypse. Like they literally described that as the apocalypse. It would have been so nice if they said, 1% of our proceeds or whatever, or this amount of money from As Ever or With Love Meghan was donated to help those in the wildfires. But no, none of that. She also admits that she dresses monochromatically in this episode, and just reminds me of when, and I know that means just of the same color palette, but you see Meghan's go-to color palette, which I agree with her to have a capsule wardrobe. I love traveling with capsule wardrobes where you can just mix and match everything. And I typically wear kind of like the same colors. But in her 4-part documentary with Prince Harry, she had said, I was forced to wear beige and whites and I couldn't stand out between me and the queen. I don't know why I'm acting like Meghan is the Wicked Witch of the West, but you're like, this was your style this entire time. Let's stop acting like you wear bright greens and reds and purples. The other recipe that I think you would like in this episode is the thumbprint cookies. You could just find these online from other people, but those looked cute. Those looked easy. She goes, there are easy ways to show up lovingly. These statements people just don't make, okay? You just don't make them. Little interesting fun fact, we learn that she used to run 5 miles a day, which is just like a casual flex, and she did a half marathon and placed in 14th place. So I think at the end of this episode, my note was that she's that mom at the PTA who just like brings a 3. Does anyone still do the PTA, by the way? Moms, comment below. I clearly don't have children yet. But she's the mom who like brings a 3-course meal when everyone else brought store-bought cookies. And you're like, effing hell. Okay, episode 8 was our shining episode of the season, and I truly don't think most people are going to even get to this episode because I could barely do. I like falling asleep. I'm like taking Ambien while I'm watching. And that was because of this vibrant, beautiful personality in the celebrity chef, Jose Andres. I don't know if I'm saying that like how he would say it, but this grand finale brought vibrant Spanish cuisine, beachy energy, and personalities clashing in the best way. Jose Andres was, I love saying his name, Jose Andres. He was my favorite guest. He made Meghan feel uncomfortable and queasy, and you could finally see her start to laugh. And when he's kind of like Claire, just in a slightly different way, where when he says these life quotes, you're like, oh, wow. I believe that. And he says this quote that's like, life is about never wasting a moment. So he takes a piece of this cheese where Megan's like, oh my God, that's way too much cheese, and puts it on a piece of croissant, and you're like, oh my God. You're like, wow, that was profound. He needs his own show. Someone told me he actually has his own show. And they make this huge paella and they feed the whole crew, and bada bing, bada boom. But you have to remember they're feeding the crew because it's literally in the episode of being joyful and community, and we're all in this together. You're making money from feeding the crew on camera, and you're getting to show people on camera. Do I think that's lovely? Sure. Do I think there's hidden motives? Of course. So if you want to do something like this and you want it to really come from the heart, just don't put it on camera. But then how will anyone know that you were so nice? So here's what I don't get throughout this whole show is that why are we bringing in random guests? Some of them were fantastic. Jose Andres, Claire, Chrissy Teigen even. Why not? Sure. F it. Let's bring in Chrissy Teigen. But we really only want to see certain people. And that is the reason why you're famous. Where is Prince Harry? He didn't even make any appearance on camera. You're doing kids crafts, yet we're not seeing any of your kids. If you're gonna kind of exploit your children anyway in a, I'm gonna show you but not show you moment on your Instagram, then why aren't we just seeing them? Just show them and exploit them on your show. I won't even call it exploiting. I'll call it making it make sense. You're doing kids crafts. Let's see some of your kids. Let's see your kids play with their aprons. Also, we've been told by a number of outlets and by yourself that your mom, Doria, who's the only relative that you're still in contact out of hundreds of people on both your sides, she makes fabulous recipes. I think you talked about her gumbo or jambalaya at some point. Doria, blink twice if you're watching this video. What about that niece, Ashley? Like, whatever happened to her? What about your dad? He's in the Philippines. I have so many friends in the Philippines. Oh my God, I can't wait to go next year. But the Philippines is supposed to have like such fantastic cuisine. Why don't you bring him on? Why don't you reconnect with your dad and make some Filipino dishes? But instead, we're making homemade graham crackers, homemade Cheez-Its, and things that people don't understand. Who are you making this for? The biggest issue is always going to come down to authenticity. However, I kind of have a different take on this. And that's Meghan's always going to be criticized for not being authentic, right? But I'm just going to put this out there. Maybe that's her. Maybe she's just not someone who can carry a 38-minute show. Maybe she's more of a short-form Reels personality. Okay, I want you to think about this. There are some girls on Instagram, women, who really shine in these snippets of Reels where they're never talking. We don't need her to talk. Shut up. I'm not trying to quiet a woman. But there are girls who just show like outfits. 5 dresses to wear. I'm clearly not one of these girls, but they do like 5 dresses to wear to a wedding. Here are your handbags from Target. Like you could do, here are your handbags from Von Cleef. See, I don't even know. It took me a lot to even remember that designer. But there are things that she could probably do really well in, and she doesn't do. Instead, she's forcing us to watch a very dull personality. She doesn't really have an exciting personality. I honestly don't know. She says she's being authentic. Maybe she is, and it's just like not fun to watch. We don't know what her true unguarded self looks like. That's why the absence of Harry actually really hurts the show, because if he was there, you can't fake like chemistry with your spouse. You know what I mean? If they cook together, we probably finally get to see the real Meghan, but maybe this is just the real Meghan and it's just not interesting. Her vernacular in and of itself is so scripted. The amount of times she said the spirit of community, the spirit of connection. No one says the term the spirit of blank. The amount of times she says it's not about being perfect. Clearly, you've been accused of being perfect if you're saying it's not about being perfect. Do you think I have ever been accused of being perfect? Absolutely not. And then she says things like, you're finding moments of beauty. I mean, how about just like, wow, that sunset's beautiful. But maybe she doesn't talk like that. Maybe she's just like a little off the rocker, you know? The big shocking revelations were that Harry said, I love you on their 3rd date in Botswana, and that she wasn't doing well. And, you know, I never wish trauma or those things on anyone. But again, it's a moment to show relatability, and she didn't take it. The standout moments were hands down Chrissy Teigen, unfiltered. Who would have guessed? Shock. I'm shooketh. Okay, Chrissy, you put out a show now. I'll watch that. I feel like Chrissy Teigen, maybe this was her redemption arc. 1000% Jose Andres, pure joy. We had Roddy Shetty for her sincerity and warmth, and Claire Smith for her excellence. I'll give her excellence. But guess what? Now I'm going to be serious, and I don't want to cry. But the thing that stood out for me the most, because, oh my God, I hate that I get so emotional, but I'm being really sincere in this moment because I never want anyone to lose their animals. But oh God, I'm annoyed with myself. But was the shots of Meghan's dog, Guy. That really warmed my heart to see. Why I'm getting emotional, for those of you who haven't seen, we lost our dog so unexpectedly at the end of June. Oh my God, stop it. Oh God, come on, you got this. So seeing the shots of Guy, okay, I'm just going to straight up say that. Seeing the shots of her dog since he had passed, I don't wish that upon anyone. And I'm really sorry for your loss. I hope he lived a great life. I heard he lived a pretty long life. So I'm happy to hear that. But I know that still doesn't make the pain any harder. Animals can't fake authenticity. So I think that was really beautiful seeing shots of him. Some people are like, she exploited him. She's not exploiting him. There's a dog in the shot. Like, let's be compassionate, people, And that's why I said at the beginning of this video, I don't want nasty comments. You could not be a fan of Meghan Markle. You could think this show was a total snooze fest. I really did not think. Usually when I'm filming, I'm like zoned in and I don't get emotional. But at the end of the day, we do have to remember that we're all people, and she is a person, right? Like, love her, hate her, we still want to be compassionate to the human that she is. Do I think this is not her format? I don't think this is her format. I think she can do well in the format I said, like on Instagram or something. Maybe her products are taking off on her website as ever. Maybe people are loving it. I mean, that's for her to hide those numbers. And I'm sure her followers probably aren't even watching till the end of the video because they're like, you hate Meghan. I don't hate her. I don't hate her. But do I think this show in general was a snooze fest? 100%. Most of the recipes were not for normal human beings. I'll also say that I loved that she shared on her Instagram that Prince Harry had the photo of her and Guy blown up. I think that her connection with Guy brings some relatability to people, and people like me don't like her show. But I love dogs, and I do think that dogs and animals can kind of connect all of us, right? And just remind us to try to be compassionate, because we're all struggling with stuff out there. But I do want to be real. I mean, most of the recipes, they were not for normal people. Actually, whipping up at elements, it's actually pretty funny to think, like, when has anyone in their right mind ever wanted to make homemade marshmallows? I have no idea. Maybe homemade soap. That wasn't that crazy. There are some things that weren't that crazy. I told you my takeaways of recipes that I might even try at some point. I did try her lemon cake and a few other things in the first season. I made some of her recipes in a video. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see that, I keep it very real, very grounded. I'll put that in the description below. And there are some things that are, that you might consider making. In conclusion, season 2 was exhausting, and it was repetitive, and it was kind of strangely soulless, except for Guy and Chrissy Teigen and Jose Andres. But there were some redemption arcs, mostly for those people that I just mentioned, and they gave life to a show that otherwise felt like a Pinterest board gone rogue. At the end of the day, I don't think Meghan is the right person to lead a lifestyle series, and that's okay. Not everyone is meant to carry a show. But meanwhile, Meghan is clapping back at the haters in a new Bloomberg original interview that honestly went very much under the radar as well. Maybe because of Taylor Swift, maybe because no one really cares. If you want, I could do a deep dive into that interview. It's about an hour long. If you want me to break that down, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, let me know what you think. Are you going to watch the season? Have you already? Have you completely told Netflix? Not for me. Either way, it's okay. We enjoy everyone creating a beautiful and respectful community. If you haven't already, join the beekeepers. We get our buzz on this channel, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao.